Welcome back, fight fans. We're here for yet another episode of the Shootin' the Shit podcast here on the Loudmouth MMA Podcast Network, as well as Combat Press and everywhere else this show is simulcasted. I am your host, Riley Kontek, here yet another week of this show. Somehow the producers keep bringing us back. It's the worst show in MMA, but we're still here. Before we get to our guest, let's of course plug the sponsor. If you're in the greater Illinois area, Illinois, Wisconsin, Indiana, etc., and you have any home construction needs that need to be done this winter or in the upcoming spring, head over to Facebook.com and go to Cornelius & Sons. The snow's thawing, but it's still probably hard to get outdoors for some of that work. So if you got anything, kitchen, bathrooms, flooring, anything indoors, again, that is Cornelius & Sons on Facebook. All right. This week we've jumped to Bellator. We've had a few weeks with UFC and PFL, but we jumped back to Bellator here. He's a light heavyweight, also a former collegiate football player. Grant Neal. Grant, how are you today?
Doing great today. How are you?
Doing well. I said football. Was it football or wrestling? Now I'm losing it.
Football and wrestling.
Okay, so it was both. Okay, I was like, oh shit. I thought I was losing it for a second. So Grant, great to have you on the show. Really excited to talk to you. Now, before we get to you specifically and talk a little bit about Bellator, because they've had some big news recently, we're just going to talk about a couple of cultural topics that are going on. The first thing, it's by the time the show airs, it's probably been a month since this had happened, but it'll be interesting to hear your comments. And we talked about it last week with Chris Camozzi. We have Gina Carano was in some hot water, and she got fired from the Mandalorian. Was fired by, I believe, Lucasfilm and Disney Plus. For some social media posts that she's made. So, Grant, what do you think about that whole situation? Do you think she deserved to be fired for what she said, or do you think that her private comments on social media don't affect her job ability and basically her role on the show?
Yeah, just by just kind of looking into it and digging into it, I feel as though there's been a little bit of tension between Gina Carano and that series going back to when it first started. So probably the executives at Disney, they didn't really like working with her. So I'm sure that this incident was probably something that they could blame her for getting fired on. It seems like a little bit petty and kind of uncalled for to lose a job over some of her comments, but I mean, it is what it is. This is the kind of industry that she chose to be in, and it's unfortunate to see people lose their jobs over something that could be corrected.
Absolutely. I think people have a right to make private comments without having their employment. How many times did you see fire Gina Carano hashtag on Twitter before it actually happened? It was like a monthly occurrence. But I mean, if you're like the head of a studio, and I'll shoot this question to you, she seemed to be a pretty popular character. They were even talking about doing a spinoff. I personally don't watch The Mandalorian. I'm not a Star Wars nerd or anything like that. But I mean, wouldn't you put personal angst aside if you're the head of the studio and say, well, this person's clearly marketable and there's clearly a person we can build the show around like they were planning on doing, just look past that and continue to work with them?
So I am a huge Mandalorian and Star Wars fan. You could call me a Star Wars nerd, actually.
I kind of did.
A fun fact: I'm actually my girlfriend gets mad at me, but I tell her I'm a two-sport professional athlete because I am a major league gamer on Star Wars Battlefront 2, and I was a part of a big club. So it's kind of unfortunate to see a character like that go. I'm curious to see what's going to happen with that. I know that she was beloved by a lot of fans and brought a lot of people into the community that maybe not were interested in the Star Wars platform. So it's kind of unfortunate to see that happen, but we'll see where it goes.
For sure. Now, the other cultural topic we're going to touch on, and again, by the time this show airs, it'll be about 2 weeks past. Oklahoma University wide receiver, I believe his last name was Jones, had gotten into a little of a tiffy with a kid in a bathroom. This was all over Barstool Sports, and the kid he messed with apparently had 10 years of MMA training. I don't know if he's anybody. I'd never heard of him, so I don't know if he's ever actually taken a pro fight or anything. But basically, the OU player got his ass kicked and needed surgery. I guess he almost lost his eye. I guess he got his orbital pounded in so bad. So Grant, if you will, I know you saw the video. Just comment on what you saw on the whole situation.
Yeah, so just from what I saw, I don't know what happened before the video was taken, but it kind of looked like the OU wide receiver saw a smaller guy and wanted to like pick on him. And if you look at the video, if you look closely, it kind of looks like the smaller guy he has a little bit of cauliflower ears. So
Yep.
um, if there's any viewers watching and you want to get into a bar fight, you might want to check their ears first. And if they have cauliflower ear, they probably know a little bit more than you about fighting. And then if someone is that as calm in a situation like that, he's probably seen some stuff. He's probably been in some fights. If you looked at the video pretty closely, he turned to his friend. Was like, "Do I really have to do this? Like, am I really gonna have to just do this right now?" And if that's the reaction you get from somebody that you're trying to pick a fight with, 9 times out of 10, it's not the big dog, the big bark that bites. So yeah, I guess you learn the hard way.
Yeah, and in watching that video, like I know I'm not the only one who said this on Twitter, but for a second I'm like, is that Ben Askren? Like just from like a quick glance. And yeah, I mean, it was funny. He went from scratching his chin, like a slight thought I shouldn't do this, to an open hand slap across, and then I forgot after that, and then he shot in on a waist lock, and then that was all it from there. But I thought the craziest part of the video was the guy from Oklahoma's buddy, who actually was the one that shoved him before the fight started. He did that little shoulder push.
Yeah,
and then the MMA kid's buddy, if you watch like 3/4 of the way through the video, like suplexes him into like the stall, and like it looks like he knocked him out.
Yeah, yeah. That was pretty crazy. There, you even heard some commentary as the guy was stepping over these two on the ground. He's like, "Man, looks like a wrestling match." And then sure enough, someone got suplexed. So
Yeah. Yeah, that was very, very interesting, but definitely the video of the month, if I can say it for that. But all right, now let's get specifically to Bellator, and then we'll talk about some stuff upcoming for you. But before we talk about Bellator recently announced that light heavyweight tournament. I know a lot of people are really excited. I'm sure you're excited because you're in that division, and obviously you're less experienced than the guys in the tournament, but you're a guy that I'm sure at some point wants to see some of these guys. So I'll give you a quick list of the tournament and the matchups, and then you can kind of give a comment on what you think. So on the left side of the bracket, we got Ryan Bader taking on Lyoto Machida. Bader, of course, the former Bellator light heavyweight champion. The fight below that is Corey Anderson versus Davlet Yagshimuradov, who will be a newcomer, but a guy I really suggest fans watch tape on. He is an absolute beast. Then we have the right side. We got Vadim Nemkov taking on Phil Davis, which should, again, be a fantastic fight. And then I think the fight that everybody's really been waiting for, Anthony Johnson, Yoel Romero. So a really, really good tournament. So, Grant, and taking a look at the tournament, I mean, who do you think is the guy or two guys to beat right now?
Obviously the champ right now, Nemkov. I mean, he's firing on all cylinders. He's riding a pretty big win streak. He's very confident. He's fighting for an entire country. So, that's the man to really look out for. I think that he has he's going to be the one to beat because he is the champ, right? Another guy I really like watching and seeing actually is Phil Davis when he's on. I mean, he's a really well-rounded fighter. And he's learning every time he goes out there. So if you watch his first fights to the MMA fighter that he's developed into now, he's utilizing both striking and his phenomenal wrestling. And it seems though, I think his last fight was a head kick knockout, I'm pretty sure. So, I mean, I think he's another one to watch out for. Obviously, the guys coming over from the UFC, Corey Anderson and Yoel Romero and Anthony Johnson. They're all game opponents.
Absolutely. And the thing I was going to ask next is, do you agree with Bellator making Johnson Romero right away? Because Coker says that's the fight everyone wants to see, but they don't want to leave it up to chance in the tournament that fight never happens.
Yeah, I mean, I think Coker has the right idea on what he wants to do as far as bringing viewership. I mean, he can really push that fight, and it'll get people interested in the tournament, right? Those are household names. Everybody knows who they are. So if you're just the casual MMA fans, gonna be like, oh, well, Romero's fighting this week. Yeah, I want to tune into that, So I like the matchup. The way I see it is, if I was in the tournament, I don't care who's in front of me. I'll fight whoever. The ultimate goal is to win the championship, and it doesn't matter who you are. You go in and you fight and you move on.
Sure. Now, I think Coker had mentioned they'll probably have 1 or 2 reserve bouts just in case anybody has to drop out due to injury or whatever. Have you been contacted about that, or do you think that you'll have a spot in those reserve fights?
So as a young fighter in the Bellator light heavyweight division, that's put together a lot of good performances. I think that there could be an opportunity there. I just have to stay ready and be ready for the call, because you never know in the fight game what happens. One day you're fighting an undefeated prospect, and the next day you're fighting somebody who's been in the fight game forever. But it is what it is, and I'd be excited to be a part of that tournament and be considered in that. I feel as though my skill set and what I can do, I can put together a great camp with some of the best people in the world. As fighters, I'll be ready for it.
For sure, and I think, had you had maybe a couple more fights, you could have been in this tournament, having 5 fights as opposed to maybe 7 or 8 or 9. I think that's probably the difference that it makes right there.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So, you were supposed to have, in my opinion, what would have been your biggest fight you were supposed to take out. Was it Tyree or Tyrell Fortune?
Tyree Fortune.
Tyree Fortune, and that fight obviously fell through. Is that a fight that you want to see run back in the immediate future?
Oh, yeah. I would love that fight again. That opportunity to fight again. I mean, Tyree and I, we've spoken passing. There's no ill will or anything towards each other, but I feel as though my skill set and what I can do and bring to the table will really challenge him in a way that I don't think he's been challenged before. I think that's been kind of an issue on getting this fight set, right? So I am sure that he's going to come ready, and he's going to come ready to fight. But that's the fight that we're looking for. That's the next fight. So that fight needs to be made, and there's no running. It has to happen.
Absolutely. And have they contacted you? I don't know how quick they fill up prelim cards, but it doesn't seem like they're going to be starting running cards until April. Have they contacted you about possibly taking a prelim fight on any of these cards?
Yeah. So we were looking at late April or early May. So we're kind of looking at those 2 dates. We circled those 2 dates in the cards. So at this time, it depends on that opponent we mentioned earlier. So my contract has been signed with that opponent, I think, two times already. So we got to give him this sign on the dotted line, and we'll go toe to toe.
Absolutely. And I think there's one other fight that I would really like to see in terms of looking at top light heavyweight undefeated prospects. Would you consider a fight with, I believe he's got 1 fight less than you, 4-0 Christian Edwards?
Yeah, I actually do like that fight. I think that it's a very similar fight to the Tyree fight, as far as stylistically and the way that they move. I think Tyree has a lot more experience than Christian Edwards, and but they're very, very similar stylistically. I think Christian Edwards may be a little bit more savvy in the jiu-jitsu realm on the ground, but on the feet they're similar. So I like that fight as well. So absolutely. I think that for as far as propelling my career to the next step, I think that Tyree is probably going to be a better a more game opponent, because he's had so many fights. I think he's a very experienced fighter. So I'm excited for that.
Yeah, I agree. I think Fortune's probably a bigger fight, but down the road, I think he gets a couple more fights, you get a couple more fights, and you're both successful. I can't see that not happening.
That might be
that would be like John Jones, Ryan Bader when they were both youngins, and then look.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, the last thing we'll ask you before we look at a few fight or off-fight prediction, Now, you had mentioned once that you wanted to get a win and then get a sponsorship from Bass Pro Shops. What's the reason behind that? Are you a big outdoorsman?
Yeah, so I'm here in Colorado, and I absolutely love the outdoors. I love hunting, fishing, all of that. I also am a skier and snowboarder, and so I like in my free time, my happy place is being out in nature. So when the pandemic hit, um, me and my closest buddies, we instead of just sitting in quarantine going crazy, we actually would drop like a couple clicks out in the national forest and get lost. And we would just hike, hunt, fish, shoot our guns. So that's just the life that I live, and that's something that I love to do. And no better, I don't think of a better person to represent a company than myself. I have that for them, and I think I could also bring a different demographic to the Bass Pro industry.
Sure.
And I mean, we're all making money there, so that's I think it's a great opportunity for them and an awesome opportunity for me as well to continue to do the things that I love and represent a company that I already love. You know.
Yeah, maybe your new gimmick, instead of like how Cowboy had the cowboy hat, you could wear like a bucket hat and like a fishing vest. That'll catch the eye.
I might walk out to that. I might put my waders on and walk out to the ring because I'm always looking to catch a big one.
There you go. That'll be your pitch, because next time you'll come out dressed like a fisherman, go fight, and then you can be like, "Hey, Bass Pro Shops, hook me up."
Yep, exactly.
All right, awesome. Now let's get to our one fight pick. So this upcoming weekend we have UFC Fight Night. It was originally supposed to be Leon Edwards versus Khamzat Chimaev. Chimaev had complications of COVID. First thing that's crazy about this, and we'll mention who the guy who's stepping in as a second is, not long ago Chimaev was taking like 3 fights in like less than 3 months, and now he's had 2 setbacks due to COVID. So his next fight basically is going to be 6 to 8 months in between. So that's the weird part. So stepping in for Chimaev is Belal Muhammad. Big ups to him because he's basically doing this on about 3 weeks' notice, and he just took a fight recently. So Grant, why don't you take a look at these two guys as fighters? Why don't you break this down, and then if you got a prediction, give it to us.
So I think that Leon Edwards is a terror. Like, to be honest, I've been watching Leon Edwards from the genesis of his fight career. So I've always been a huge fan and supporter of Leon Edwards, and he's had such a long layoff, right? So it's going to be interesting to see him in such a big show. But I actually like him going against a Muhammad because it's a great fight for him, I think, to get his feet wet, back in the ring, get comfortable before he's fighting in those in title contention fights,
Yeah.
So I think very well this is no disrespect to Muhammad, I think he's a phenomenal fighter as well, but I think that they're in that division, it's so stacked that it's anybody's game, and for him for Leon Edwards to have an opportunity to go against someone who's not in the very tip top of the division before he gets in those fights, I think it's going to benefit him, to be honest.
Yeah, and I think when it's all said and done, once Edwards actually steps into the cage, I think it will be about 20 months layoff. So you're right. That's a very long time.
Yeah, and you see it. I've been in situations where I haven't been in the cage for like almost half a year. So like it's definitely, it's different, right? You can spar hard, you can simulate matches, but there's nothing like walking that walk and stepping and hearing that cage door lock and you're going to war. And so when you're not doing that for 20 months, it might take a round or two to get comfortable again in there. Mm-hmm. So I'm curious to see how he handles it, and just watching Leon Edwards, I think he'll handle it very well. But we'll see.
Yeah, it's an interesting matchup. Edwards more of a kickboxer, Muhammad more of a traditional type boxer. The one thing that I have to kind of point out is in that Muhammad's fight, which was this month against Diego Lima, he really, really ate a lot of leg kicks that really started to affect him down the road. And I think Edwards' kick game is going to be exceptionally important here.
Yeah, and Edwards can utilize that. So yeah, Edwards is always great. He actually is really good at mixing it up.
Mm-hmm.
So he's really good at making you think he's going to kick you, and then he'll tag you with a punch, or making him think he's going for overhand right, and then all of a sudden you're getting blasted with kicks. Yeah. So that technical aspect of his game, I think, is going to be the X factor in him getting the W.
Absolutely, and so we'll be in agreement on that one. We're both going to take Leon Edwards here, but I think we both are saying the same thing in that we really respect Muhammad taking this fight on such short notice, especially after a fight where he did take a decent amount of damage just in February.
Yeah. I mean, that dude's a stud, but I mean, that's our job. Fighters fight. So, kudos to him for taking the fight. But I'm a big proponent of that. Like, if you're not seriously injured and this is our job. Like, we fighters fight. So that's awesome that he's really embodying that spirit, that real fighter spirit. So kudos to him as well.
Now, the last question before we let you go. Do you think with a win, Leon Edwards gets an automatic title shot, or do you think he needs one more win after that, given the layoff?
That's hard to say. We'll see how everything shakes out in the division, because I mean, Leon Edwards, I feel he's always the one that's like overlooked as far as title shots, you know, and because a lot of people are making noise. One of our guys now. In that division, Kamara, I think anybody in that division, I think Kamara is here, and everybody else in that division is a step lower. I think, I think it's undoubtedly so, and not many people like really respected Kamara until that last fight. It was like, man, this guy really has beat everybody that they've thrown at him. So we'll see. I mean, it's going to be hard for Leon Edwards because he's not a guy that is like making a bunch of noise. And a lot of these guys are getting these fights because they're making a lot of noise.
That's 100% true. You know, between Covington and Masvidal, it's really hard to get a word in edgewise.
Yeah, and that might not be the route that he has to go. He has to navigate a different pathway because, I mean, those guys are masters of what they do. They're master entertainers. They got PhD in entertainment. So they know how to position themselves in fight opportunities based off of how they talk to people. So Edwards has to figure out a way, if that's not authentic and it's uncomfortable for him, he's got to figure out a way to get his name in that atmosphere and really pull that. And I think he can with the fans from the UK. I think that, I mean, if he can really pull that and play that card, I think that it's an awesome opportunity for him there.
Absolutely. I agree 100% with what you said. So, Grant, thanks again for coming on the show. This is the time where I give you the floor. If you'd like to thank anybody or see tell us where we can find you on social media, take the floor. It's yours.
Yeah, so you can find me on social media at Grant Neal 34, and that's my Instagram, and just Grant Neal on Twitter. Shoot me a follow, message me on Instagram and or Twitter. I usually respond. I'm excited about what's to come, and I'm enjoying what I do, and you guys come on for the ride.
Awesome, Grant. Thanks a lot. Now I'm going to plug myself real quick, guys. You know this show once a week, Loudmouth MMA Podcast Network, ton of different platforms. You can also catch it on my YouTube channel. It's posted on combatpress.com. On my social media pages, Twitter, Facebook. You know the story if you've watched the show before, so we won't get super into it. So, Grant, thank you again for coming onto the show. So, for Grant Neal, I'm Riley Kontek saying continue watching the fights, continue watching this show, and go fuck yourselves.